Hey guys, how you going? In this video I'm going to be showing you how to create this login form right here from scratch using plain HTML and CSS. So we can see it's quite a minimalistic login form and it looks like this right here if I was to fill out the inputs. So let's go inside this tab right here. We're starting fresh with a blank HTML document. So let's go inside the text editor. I'll just open up the index file right here. So as we can see, nothing much is happening on the actual HTML document. So the first thing to do is to actually include a style sheet for the login form. So I'm going to make a new directory right here called CSS. Inside here, I'll make a new file. This will be called login.css, and of course this will contain all of the styles relative or related to the actual login screen or the login page, login form, whatever you want to call it. So go inside here and of course just link up the login form. We can say, style sheet. We can say CSS login.css. Back inside here, let's begin by setting the background color of the actual page. So essentially, to go from this to this, we're going to be starting from top and just working our way down. So first, let's set the background color of the page. So back inside here, it'll be as simple as, of course, just saying body. Then I can say background. I'm going to set the background to the color of my dcode logo. So I'm going to say #009578. And then as well, we want to set like a bit of a margin, so we can say margin 15px all around, and then I can say margin top of 50px just to, of course, push down the actual login container and keep the sides at 15px. So I can save this and refresh, and we have this result right here. So I think, using solid, bright colors as your background for login can definitely look, quite nice. So that is all for the body. We can go back inside here, and we can begin work on the actual HTML for the login form. So we're going to be creating a new form element. So let's go down here. I'm going to say form. The action can be just going back to the same page. The method, of course, will be up to you. Most likely post, I hope. And then here we can just simply set a class on the form. So I can say class login-form. So I'm going to be using the BEM block element modifier CSS naming convention as usual, but you can use whatever class names you like. So with this login form class, we can hop back inside the CSS and target the class of login form. Firstly, I'm going to target the login form and then everything within login form. I'm going to set the box sizing to be border box, and this just makes it easier to code with the paddings and borders and all that sort of stuff. So make sure everything here is border box as the box sizing. Also, we're going to set a font family of sans serif for now, but later on we can set our own custom font. So we can then target the login form itself and only the login form. So here we're going to set firstly a maximum width. So by default, the form element is going to be 100% width. So if I was to go back inside the browser, refresh here, and hover over this form, we can see it is 611.04 pixels wide. Essentially, it is the width of the actual body. So we can set a maximum width on the form. So I can say max width, make this 350px, and now it's going to be responsive on mobile devices. So I can just demonstrate this right now by setting a padding of 10px and a background of black, for example. I can save this and refresh. We have this right here. If I was to squeeze this browser window down, we can see it is responsive. So let's go back inside here and just remove the padding and the background. We're going to set a margin of 0 and auto. This will ensure it remains centered in the middle of the page, at least horizontally. Also a border radius of 5px. an overflow of hidden. So the reason why these two are combined is because if you have content which overflows on the actual on the actual login form, then this overflow hidden is going to ensure this 5px border radius is always going to show. It's sort of like it's going to clip off the content to ensure the radius shows. Also, a boxed shadow of 0015px RGBA 0000.5, so quite a subtle 15% opaque black box shadow, I think looks quite nice. Just for once again a bit of demonstration, I'm going to set some padding 15px and background of white so we can see our result. So I'm going to save this and refresh, and we have this right here. So obviously it's responsive and it remains centered in the middle of the page. So looking pretty good so far. Next will be to insert the logo, so the top sort of half up here. So for this one, I'm going to go back inside the HTML, get rid of this stuff firstly actually. Okay, so back inside the HTML, we can basically create two main sections for the login form, the first half and the bottom half. So going to say div here with a class of login form __ logo container. This div is going to contain the logo. So for this one, we can then simply put the image for the logo inside here. So we can say image, give it a source of assets, dcode, logo, white, transparent. That is of course my file name, .png. I recommend you use a white transparent logo that is PNG. It just looks nice against the dark backgrounds. Of course, give it an alt text of logo, for example, and also of course a class of login form __ logo. I can save this and refresh, and we have this result right here. So obviously logo is quite large, and we need to set the background color on the container. So back in the CSS, let's first work with the container. So I can say login form logo container. Let's give this some padding first off of 30px, just to of course make it look quite nice. A lot of white space around the actual logo itself. And of course the background. So for the background, since the background of the body is this green color, we can simply set this background to be RGBA 000.25. So essentially it is saying a 25% black overlay on top of the background of the page, which will of course create a darker shade of this background. So I can save this and refresh. We have this right here. Okay, so now for the logo, this will be pretty easy. Let's just target the logo itself, so login form logo. We can set this firstly to a display of block. This will not only remove the bottom little 1 pixel space for inline block elements, it will also of course keep the logo on the same line. A max width of 125px I think works well with a max width up here of 350. Also a margin of 0 auto will of course horizontally center the logo. So I can save this, refresh, we have this right here. Once again, it is working responsively, which is of course good. And it works on things like, I believe iPhone 5, it works still fine. And of course, that is one of the smallest phones available. So there you go. So anyway, let's go back inside here now and work on the actual second half. That is what I call the content half. So back inside the HTML, let's work on this div. So we can say div with a class of login form __ content. Okay, so here it's going to be the main chunk of the login form. So let's begin with the little header which says login to your account. So for this one, we can just say div once again with a class of login -form __ header. Inside here, we can say login to your account. We can then just work on the styles for the content. So back inside here, let's say login form underscore content. For this, going to be quite straightforward, keeping the same padding as the logo container, so 30px right there, also a background. So very similar to, of course, the top half right here. This background is going to be a very light gray, something like E. So I can save this, refresh, and we get this. Okay, so even this font right here looks not too bad. But that is all for the content container. For the header, let's go back inside here. So login form underscore header. We're going to give a margin bottom of 15px for this. This will ensure it remains well spaced from the actual inputs. Okay. A text align of center will look quite nice because everything else is currently centered. And a color of a very dark gray also looks quite nice. Save this, refresh, we have this right here. So now for the inputs. So probably one of the more complicated parts of this tutorial, but it's still pretty straightforward. So back inside here, let's work on the HTML for the inputs. So we can make an input here for the username. This will be, of course, input type text. Just give it a name, any name, something like DC underscore username will do just fine. And the placeholder is one of the most important parts of using the inputs, because I think today most websites will include the username and password sort of prompts inside the placeholder. So I'm going to say username inside here. And that is, of course, how we get to see username as this placeholder text right there. So back inside here, let's give it a class, of course, of login-form underscore input. And this class will be used, of course, for both the username and password fields. I'm going to also create a second input, of course, for the password. So we can say type password, and the placeholder will be password, and of course the name, once again, will be password. Save this, refresh, and we have this right here. So let's go inside the CSS and style up these inputs. So we can say here, login form underscore input, of course. Firstly, a width of 100%. So width 100%. A margin bottom of 10px I think looks quite nice to, of course, separate both of the inputs and also the login button. Padding is basically essential on these inputs, so 10px once again looks quite nice in my opinion. A border radius of 5px just to keep consistent with what is around the actual login form container itself. A border of 2px solid, and then a very light grey, but not as light as the background of the content. So one step up in terms of darkness as the background. Also 2px looks quite nice compared to 1px. A background of the actual inputs to be, of course, white, keeping that nice little contrast between the background and the actual inputs themselves. An outline of none to remove the blue border once you've actually focused on the element. Don't worry, we're going to, of course, add our own our own focus state on the input. Also a transition here for border color at 0.5 seconds. So when, of course, we actually gain focus on the input down here, we can code a different border color and make it look quite nice as it transitions to the new color. So I can save this and refresh. We have this result right here. So of course, looking quite good. But to add the focus pseudo class, that's quite straightforward. We're going to simply change the border color. So back inside the text editor, we can just copy and paste this right here, and we can say on focus. We can, of course, change the border color. The border color is going to be the same color as the background of the page. So border color 009578. Save this, refresh. Now you gain focus and it looks nice with the green border. So for the placeholder text, you can even target that in CSS. So let's go back inside here. Once again, copy and paste this class. I can say placeholder just like that, and now I can style up the placeholder text. So I'm going to say color as a light gray. This is just to ensure you get consistency across different browsers, because right now Chrome is applying a light gray, but I'll refresh, we get our own light gray right there, and of course it's going to be consistent across all of the web browsers. So that is basically all for the inputs. We can now work on the login button itself. So back inside here, once again, on the HTML, we can create a new button right here with a type of submit, and this will ensure the form gets submitted when you click on the button. Inside here, we can just say login as the text. You might want to have continue, you know, things like that, but for me I'm going to say login right there. A class of login form __ button, okay? And we can just copy this, go inside the CSS as usual, and start styling up the button. But firstly, I'm going to save this and refresh. We're going to begin with this right here. So, back inside here, firstly, once again, essentials will be the padding of 10 px. Also, a text color of white and a font weight of bold. To contrast with the text color of white, you want to use the same background color as your page background color. So background, once again, of that dcode green. You may choose to actually use maybe like an actual green color, like a green success color if you like, but I'm going to use the background color right there. Also, a width of 100% is absolutely essential for this kind of thing. And of course, a border of none, an outline of none. That's to remove some of the default styles that certain browsers will apply on these buttons. A border radius, once again, of 5px to keep consistent with the inputs and the actual container. And a cursor of pointer to, of course, create the pointer cursor when you hover over the button. I can save this and refresh. We have this look right here. So for, once again, for the active pseudo class on the button, it's going to be simply a darker version of the background color. So let's go back inside here, target this class, and we can say on active, we can simply change the background color to be 008067. That is a darker version of my dcode green. Save this and refresh, and we are done with the button. Click on it, it works just fine, and we get, of course, the active pseudo class right here. So for the links on the bottom, forgot your password, make an account, things like that, we're going to have a container especially for that stuff inside the actual content. So back inside the HTML, let's go inside here and say div with a class of login form __ links. Okay, inside here we can put in a bunch of anchor tags. For example, a.login form __ link, so a class of login form link. So we have links and then link for the actual individual links themselves. Here, of course, href of the same page just for demonstration. And here we can say forgot your password. Okay, save this, refresh, we have this result right here. We're going to simply center this text and make it green. So inside the login CSS, we can firstly target the container for the links themselves, a margin top of 15px to match the margin bottom on the header, okay, and a text align of center, of course, and for the links themselves, so login form link, a font size of 0.9 em, so 90% of the current font size, just a tad smaller. The color will be the same color as the background once again, so we can say 009578. Text decoration of none to remove the underline if you're into that sort of thing. So I can save this and refresh, and we have here the final result for the actual text on the bottom. So now we're pretty much done with the CSS, and we can simply include one of these fonts from Google Fonts or fonts.google.com. So obviously this website right here, it's quite a good source of fonts. I believe they are all free and free to use, so you can simply choose a font right here. I recommend using sans serif as your category, and then I've just chosen a font here. I've chosen Source Sans Pro. Make sure you customize and select you want regular and bold, so you get both styles. You can then simply copy and paste this import or this standard. I'm going to use import here. Copy and paste this right here and paste it inside the head of your, on the top of your CSS file. Of course, if you're using the standard import right here, this goes inside your HTML. So once that's imported, we can simply go inside here and we can set the font family to be Source Sans Pro and then sans serif as the backup. Of course, you can find this font family text on the website once again. So down here it says, yeah, cool, just use this as your font family. Okay, so I can go here, refresh, and we have here the final result, and it works just fine. And that is how you can create this login form right here using plain HTML and CSS. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.